Thank you. Jamie Harrell, lived here in Sherwood for about 4 years now. I had a lot of things to say today, and then after listening to presentations tonight, I thought it would be fun to poke holes in their presentation if you wanted. But what we could do instead of that would be, I could propose we run it ourselves, show $1 million in profit every year, and it would be no more valuable than Health Fitness's proposal, Tualatin Parks and Recs, frankly, the YMCA's. The biggest concern with any of the proposals is who is responsible if we lose money. What I learned tonight, listening to Health Fitness, is it's on you, and it's on the city. They made it very clear, if it fails, it's your failure. So to be you, 6 of you, hopefully 7 of you soon, that will have to make the hard decisions. There's lots of things in their proposal that didn't make a lot of sense to me tonight. They talked about higher wages. Councilwoman Robinson mentioned it, but we didn't talk about the number of FTEs. They're paying more for less people. That won't make sense. Councilperson Young brought up the fact that every single person on the salary side had 50 weeks of work, 2 weeks off. Even the part-time employees, the expectation of the part-time employees are going to take 2 weeks off doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That tells me they're not going to be open. The YMCA today is only closed 2 days a year, Christmas and Easter. You can quickly do the math. There are other days there and they're not going to be open. Similar to their facility, I believe in Alaska, that's open 6 days a week. Has different hours. Now I'm going to try to move here because I got 2 minutes. I have all kinds of things I wanted to say, but I'm going to skip to what's most important to me. On the last meeting I was at, Councilperson Robinson mentioned that the facility would be the same regardless of who runs it. It would be identical. And I just have to disagree with that. I'm a little bit biased. My wife has worked at the YMCA for 12 years. She's taught some of your kids how to swim, even gave one of your kids their first job. She cares for this community more than anybody I know, and she cares for the YMCA. To think that that type of compassion is going to exist with a new leader and a new face behind the facility is just very, very short-lived. It just will not be the same. I have a minute to go. Here we go. There's been a lot of talk on Facebook, good, bad, ugly, all kinds of things. 2 things that kind of stuck out to me that I've seen in the last month. So there were 2 comments by members of the council. One that reminded us that they're just a volunteer, and one that reminded us they're not paid. And I would implore you to realize you were elected. To insinuate that if you got paid, you would make different decisions, or if you weren't a volunteer, you would think differently, is degrading to us. It's degrading to yourselves. You're on this committee to represent us, all the people behind me, all the people in the city, and that is important. It should be important to you, and it's definitely important to me.
Daniel Tilson.
Well, what bothers me most about the whole YMCA Health Fitness mess is not so much who runs it, but how the whole RFP process was handled. I feel, as many do, that the YMCA was a better proposer given all the information that was made public. That being said, I offer the following for consideration. In the Sherwood RFP on page 8, under local and federal requirements, it states the City of Sherwood intends to select an organization in accordance with ORS 136.47.0255. Within that ordinance, competitive sealed bidding, it states under section C that the contracting agency shall set forth objective evaluation criteria in the solicitation document. In addition to this, within Oregon contracting laws 137.049.0390, offer evaluation award paragraph 6, evaluation of bids, the contracting agency shall use only objective criteria to evaluate bids as set forth in the invitation to bid. In the request for proposal of Oregon 137-049-0650, the contracting agency shall evaluate proposals only in accordance with criteria set forth in the RFP and applicable law. In the work session of August 7th, City Attorney stated, Council is ranking the written proposals, scoring them, and also scoring the interviews. He said both of these scores would be combined. The second part, as the Council has discussed, is a bit different. A normal Council decision has to be based on the criteria in the RFP and to be supported by data. I also find it interesting that in the RFP, under the paragraph labeled competition, it says the city will consider all proposals equally and shall not favor any particular proposer over another, analyzing the proposals to encourage fair competition. In reading the scoring from several council members, I find much their notes in conflict with Oregon contracting law, specifically ORS 136-47-0255. In addition, I find several councilors in violation of Attorney Soper's instruction on scoring. My main concern is the amount of subjective data and previous history that was taken into account in the scoring, when Oregon law clearly states you should only consider objective data. And the attorney had instructed the council members to use data in the proposals and interview to score proposals. So with that in mind, here's what I've found. These are just some of the things from Mayor Clark and Councilor Robinson. That in their YMCA written proposal continues over-reliance on region versus Sherwood residents' needs and wants, subjective and past history. No continued contribution to city since bond concluded, past history. This was not in the proposal. High management fee pays for branding, which continues the confusion to residents on ownership of facility due to marketing, subjective opinion. Under the interview for Councilor Robinson, most impressive of all proposers, subjective opinion. Most comprehensive, subjective opinion. Similar to key values of Y membership, subjective opinion and prior history. Excessive puffery on the Y, letter too long, subjective opinion. The YMCA determined some info is confidential or proprietary, concerned that they may be hiding something, subjective opinion. This goes on for quite some time, but since I only have 25 seconds left, I'll get right to the back. I also find it interesting that the average score for the written evaluations of the other 5 counselors is 82. Mayor Clark's score was 45. In the interview, the other 5's average was 72. Mayor Clark's score was 45. The council has the option to cancel the entire RFP process. I believe this might be an option to consider. The directions in the RFP were not followed, the advice of Attorney Soper was not followed, and Oregon contracting law was not followed.
Thank you.
I'm James Kopfer. Quickly, I want to clarify a couple things. I did have a conversation with Mayor Middleton, and I do agree that we're at this point with the why because the contract was not done earlier. However, we would still be at the point of a recall. I was asked by a lot of people to do that, and so I took it on. The council has a responsibility to represent the will of the people and to look out for their financial interests. And a lot of people do not believe that that has happened. I also want to say that I disagree with the former mayor. I don't believe Tom Pesimer is qualified to be a city manager. I'm going to defend this recall. The items, first of all, let me make it really clear. Okay, a recall is a legal process allowed citizens when they don't feel that their elected officials are doing their job or representing them as they want to be represented. There is no law that regulates what can be in that necessarily. Opinion is allowed. If it's the opinion of the citizens that people are behaving unethically, then that's the opinion of citizens. If it's the opinion of citizens based on things they see in city council meetings and other places, that certain members of a city council are abusive and don't treat citizens fairly or other council members fairly, then that is what is in the recall. And that's where we are at. It's been said that it's false. the $100,000 to $300,000 a year that I put into my recall petition, that is what the council members that did their ranking and rated it number one, they were okay with that when they did it. So that is where my recall petition is at. It is the opinion of people in this community that Mayor Clark is not a full-time member of the community. By her own admission, she spends time here and in Redmond. By her husband's admission, she spends time here and in Redmond. Therefore, by definition, she does not live here full-time, and it's the citizens' right to say, we don't feel that you can represent us effectively when you are not living here full-time.
Dave Hieronymus.
Thank you for staying past 9:30. I know we all have to get home and watch TV and hang with our kids. I sat up there a while back and spent 10 years on the city council. I was on the original committee that brought the YMCA here. So I have a deep knowledge and historical knowledge of this facility. But touching on what Tim mentioned earlier, the RFP process, in the 10 years that I served on city council, we did major contracts, major projects, much bigger than the Y. And do you want to know how many of those RFPs that the citizens or that the city council scored, like you guys just did with the RFP on the rec facility? 0. Every time staff was brought in to handle the RFP, they'd bring the criteria back to council. Council would talk about it with them. We'd vote on it. They'd send it out for RFP. It came back. The professional city staff that has great experience and knowledge in this, they're the ones who scored it. They're the ones that brought back the recommendation and then brought it back, their recommendation to council. The council went yay or nay. So this whole process that you guys just went through is bizarre. It needs to be canceled and rebooted. To Tim's suggestion, to bring staff and citizen committee back together to go through this process and do it the right way, because the way you did it, frankly, is just incomprehensible. And I serve with some of these city staff people, and they're great people, and they're very competent, and they'll look at the data in the RFPs in an objective manner and not a subjective manner. It was stated before, 2 of you up there were so subjective. I mean, one of you treated the Y like the mob because you didn't trust them. I mean, the comments were just incredibly bizarre. And I guess my last comment is this foot dragging on the 7th council position. We had vacancies when I was on council. It never took 5 months to fill the spot. At the rate you're going to have the new appointees serve 2 meetings if you wait till November to appoint this person. And that's just a waste of their time. It's a waste of the citizens' time. And frankly, I would have gladly given up all the citizen comment time tonight for you to interview the last 2 candidates and make a decision tonight, because it's not fair for them to wait till whenever you're going to schedule the next round of interviews, and you're going to have to sit there and think about what you heard tonight from the first 3 applicants, and then you're going to have to make a decision then. So I think it's really unfair to the applicants and to the citizens to sit here and keep punting the ball down the field. So I just encourage you to make a decision, even if you have to call a special meeting. You know, I know that's more hours and hours and reams of information, but I've been there, I've done that. I think you guys can step up, and I think from the audience tonight, I think you know that, you know, we want you to make a decision on this and cancel the RFP. Thank you.
Thank you.